The Melody of the Flute, an American folktale. Once upon a time, there lived a boy in a village. His parents had passed away when he was very young. He had no close relatives in the world. His mother had died at the time of his birth. Everyone in the village called him Kenny. The neighbors had raised Kenny together. He would have one meal at one person's house and another meal at someone else's. Since everyone had seen him as an orphan from childhood, they all felt sympathy for him. Receiving so much love and sympathy, Kenny had grown lazy. He was about 12 or 13 years old, but wasn't interested in any work. He spent his time wandering around the fields and played the flute in his free time. Kenny played the flute very sweetly. People would become mesmerized by the beautiful sound of his flute, and some even gave him rewards for his music. Time passed, and Kenny grew up, but he remained as lazy as ever. He called the couple who had raised him, Jackie and his wife, uncle and aunt. Their own son had grown up and started working. One day, Kenny slept late in the morning. His aunt kept trying to wake him up, but Kenny wouldn't get up. Finally, in anger, she filled a bucket with water and poured it over him. Kenny woke up with a start. His aunt, already angry, scolded him, saying, "Kenny, is this any way to live? You're sleeping until the sun is high in the sky. You live off your uncle's earnings. You should work for yourself and understand what hard work is." Kenny had heard similar remarks hundreds of times, but they never affected him. However, that morning, his aunt's words pierced his heart like an arrow. He didn't say anything to his aunt, but he resolved that he would only return home once he had earned something. Before leaving, Kenny touched the feet of Jackie and his wife and hugged them before walking out the door. When Kenny didn't return by evening, Jackie and his wife discussed Kenny's unusual behavior that morning. As more time passed, Jackie started worrying about Kenny. He said to his wife, "You scolded him harshly this morning. I think he's upset and has run away." His wife began to realize her mistake, but there was nothing they could do except wait for Kenny to return. Days turned into weeks, but Kenny did not come back. Meanwhile, Kenny had walked far away. On his journey, he became hungry, but he had no money for food. He eventually reached a nearby town. There, he asked many people for work, but no one would hire him. He didn't know any skills, and without any references, no one was willing to give him a job. Exhausted, he sat under a tree and took out his flute, playing it. By chance, a musician passing by on horseback heard Kenny's sweet flute music and was impressed by his talent. The musician took Kenny with him and treated him well. This musician played the guitar in the royal court to entertain the king. The next day, the musician praised Kenny before the king, who said, "He may indeed be talented, but we need to test him first." The king invited many famous musicians to his court. They all brought their instruments and gathered in the court. Kenny was also invited and arrived with his flute in his pocket. One by one, the musicians played their instruments to impress the king. When they saw Kenny arriving empty-handed, they laughed and whispered among themselves, doubting that the boy could compete with them. When it was Kenny's turn, he bowed before the king and sat down on the ground. He began to play his flute, and the music was so enchanting that everyone in the court was captivated. When he finished, the court echoed with applause. The king praised Kenny, saying, "Kenny, we are very impressed with your talent. The most remarkable thing is that you did not lose your confidence despite being mocked. Talent and self-confidence can take anyone to great heights. You have no arrogance about your skill, and that is truly admirable. We offer you a position in our court." Kenny was overjoyed. He started living in the palace. After a month, when he received his first salary, he took the money and went to visit Jackie and his aunt. He gave them the salary and told them everything. They were delighted. Returning the money to Kenny, Jackie said, "May you always be happy, my son. Remember, no skill is insignificant. It was your flute that brought you this far." Just then, his aunt came out and said, "With God's grace, you have achieved so much. Continue to work hard and improve. Our blessings are with you. Always remember, laziness makes a person worthless." Kenny hugged his aunt and said, "Yes, Auntie, I have learned the value of hard work. I will never be lazy again and will work with dedication." Taking their blessings, Kenny returned to the royal court and lived happily ever after.